There is a profound mystery in the way human memory operates. We live in an era of relentless noise, navigating crowded streets in London or New York, swiping through thousands of faces on glowing screens, and engaging in endless, fleeting conversations. Yet, when the noise fades and the lights go down, most of those faces simply blur into the background of our minds. But every so often, you meet someone who defies this erasure. Long after the conversation ends, long after the room empties and the seasons change, the memory of them lingers like a quiet echo in a vast canyon. You find yourself thinking about them, not because they were the loudest person in the room, nor because they demanded your attention. Rather, it is something entirely invisible, yet undeniably heavy. It is their aura. This is the hallmark of a specific archetype of soul, known in modern psychology as the INFJ. But to simply reduce them to 4 letters is to miss the poetry of their existence. Their presence is not a rehearsed strategy or a calculated trick. It is a state of being, a quiet intensity, a deep oceanic presence, and an unspoken guarantee that they see the world through a lens that most people do not even know exists. This lingering memory they leave behind often evolves into a deep, unshakable fascination. People find themselves magnetized, unable to stop analyzing that one interaction. They ask themselves why they felt so exposed, yet so incredibly safe in the presence of a near stranger. This is not the unhealthy, controlling type of obsession. It is a profound human yearning. It is the craving for a depth that modern society has largely forgotten. In a world where most individuals skim the shallow surface of existence, prioritizing quick wit and superficial charm, this rare individual dives directly into the deep waters of the human heart, naturally pulling others down with them into the profound quiet. To understand this phenomenon, we must look at history and culture. Think of the resilience of a generation that rebuilt a nation from the ashes of war. The miracle of the Han River in South Korea was not achieved through loud boasting, but through a silent, unbreakable, collective intensity. It was an unspoken vow of endurance and deep, quiet strength. The aura we are exploring today shares that exact spiritual DNA. It is a presence that does not need to shout to be heard. It cuts through the superficial noise, creating a connection so pure and potent that it leaves an indelible mark on the soul. Let us delve into the first reason behind this quiet magnetism: an intense, grounding presence that demands attention without ever asking for it. Imagine walking into a crowded room. The air is thick with superficial chatter, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. Then a shift occurs. Someone enters, and though they do not raise their voice or make grand gestures, the gravity of the room subtly changes. It is a quiet intensity. This is not an aggressive energy. Rather, it is a blend of immense calm, profound thought, and a heavy emotional weight. You can physically feel that they are thinking. You can sense the depth of their feeling. It creates a stark, almost startling contrast with the frantic energy of the modern world, where others speak rapidly, filling the silence with empty words out of discomfort. This individual speaks slowly, allowing their words to carry genuine weight. When you meet them, you may not possess the vocabulary to explain why the atmosphere feels different, but your body registers the shift. You feel seen. You feel studied, but in the gentlest way possible. It is not the piercing gaze of a judge looking for your flaws, but the warm, observant eyes of a deeply empathetic soul recognizing your humanity. This captivating intensity is rooted in their extraordinary ability to remain completely present. In an era defined by fractured attention, where people are constantly glancing at their phones or mentally preparing their next response. While you are still speaking, this person offers something radically different. They are entirely there with you. They do not split their focus. They absorb your words, your tone, your hesitations, and your silent sighs. This total immersion makes their energy feel overwhelmingly full and focused. Because we are so unaccustomed to receiving an undivided human presence, the experience leaves a permanent imprint. This profound attention also breeds immediate, unshakable trust. It is why people often find themselves pouring out their darkest secrets, their childhood traumas, or their wildest dreams to them within mere hours of meeting. They listen not with the idle curiosity of a gossip, but with the sacred reverence of a confessor. They know how to hold space. They do not rush to fill the awkward silences. They let the quiet moments sit, allowing truth to rise to the surface. It is the start of a deep fascination, born not from a demand for attention, but from the provision of a sanctuary. The second force driving this unspoken obsession is the immediate, deep emotional connection they forge on a first encounter. Small talk is the currency of the modern world, a necessary but hollow exchange. For this rare personality, small talk is not just boring, it is spiritually draining. What ignites their soul is authentic, immediate, and raw emotional connection. When you engage with them, the conversation bypasses the weather and the weekend plans entirely. It feels like being comprehensively understood without having to endure the exhaustion of explaining yourself. They possess a natural radar that tunes into the frequencies beneath your spoken words. In Korean culture, there is a beautiful, untranslatable concept known as jong. It is a deep, invisible emotional bond, a feeling of affection, empathy, and shared humanity that ties people together. This personality type embodies the purest form of jeong. They hear the sorrow you are trying to hide behind a joke. They feel the anxiety masked by your confidence, and they respond directly to that hidden truth. This emotional resonance is breathtakingly powerful. It strips away your defensive armor and offers a profound sense of safety. Once you open up and step into that vulnerable space, they do not flinch. They do not turn away in discomfort, nor do they offer hollow platitudes. They cradle your emotional truth with immense care and respond with something thoughtful, agonizingly honest, and deeply comforting. The tragedy of our society is that most people are accustomed to being only half heard, or worse, instantly judged. To be met by someone who makes you feel completely seen and unconditionally accepted is intoxicating. It is an addictive emotional safety. It is calming, yet thrilling, because it is not a passive, bland kindness. It is a fiercely connected, laser-focused presence. There are moments in these conversations where they will utter a single sentence that cuts straight to a core truth you had not even articulated to yourself yet. That realization lands like a tidal wave. It happens fast. It does not require years of friendship. It can occur in a 20-minute conversation on a park bench. And once it happens, you will replay that moment in your mind 1,000 times. You will crave that feeling of being known, and that craving is the genesis of a haunting, beautiful fixation. This brings us to the third reason, the enigma of their rarity and their staggering internal complexity. This archetype is statistically rare, but their true rarity lies in how they manifest in the world. They are a walking paradox, fiercely layered and brimming with contrast. This contradiction is precisely what makes them impossible to forget. Human beings are naturally drawn to puzzles, and this personality is a masterpiece of unsolved mysteries. On the surface, they may appear remarkably calm, exceptionally friendly, and entirely predictable. But the longer you linger in their orbit, the more you realize that the surface is merely an illusion. They are profoundly quiet, yet fiercely bold when defending a cause. They are incredibly gentle, yet possessing an absolute, unyielding firmness when their boundaries are tested. They are highly logical, analyzing the world with clinical precision. Yet they are driven by a deeply romantic, emotional core. Just when you believe you have successfully categorized them, they will do or say something that shatters your entire understanding. This creates an irresistible tension. You realize there is a vast, hidden universe beneath their polite smile, and the desire to explore that universe becomes an overwhelming pull. However, they do not grant access to this inner universe easily. They dispense their inner world in meticulously measured layers, and only to those who have earned their absolute trust. This deliberate withholding is the very engine of the obsession they inspire. You never get the whole picture at once. Every single interaction feels like excavating an ancient, precious artifact. Each new discovery makes you desperately want the next. You find yourself wondering late at night, what else are they keeping guarded? What tragedies have they witnessed? What profound joys have they experienced? It is crucial to understand that this is not a manipulative game. They are not playing hard to get to stroke their own ego. They are fundamentally private by nature, protective of their fragile inner peace. Like a traditional Korean hanok home, which presents a modest wooden exterior to the street, but harbors a lush, private courtyard within, their true beauty is reserved only for those invited inside. This restraint makes every moment of vulnerability they share feel like a sacred gift. The tension between their warm openness and their impenetrable privacy keeps you endlessly intrigued, forever trying to turn the pages of a book that refuses to end. The fourth mesmerizing trait is an intuition so sharp and deeply rooted that it almost borders on the psychic, creating a powerful sense of nostalgia. They possess a terrifyingly accurate ability to know things they were never explicitly told. They read the microscopic shifts in your body language, the slight hesitation in your tone, the rhythm of your breathing, and the emotional undercurrents of a room. In Korean society, there is a concept called nunchi, the subtle art of gauging others' moods and listening to the unspoken. This personality elevates nunchi to an art form. Their subconscious mind works like a supercomputer, silently gathering data, and what eventually emerges is a staggering insight that feels deeply personal, sometimes even prophetic. When they look at you and softly articulate a fear you have hidden from the world, it feels as though someone has held up a mirror to your soul. It is not merely the satisfaction of being understood. It is the overwhelming, mystical sensation of being recognized from a past life. This profoundly intimate recognition triggers a sudden, intense wave of nostalgia. You become nostalgic not just for them, but for the version of yourself they brought into the light. It is as if they reached into the dark depths of your mind and unlocked a door you did not even realize was sealed shut. This world-shifting realization can occur in the most mundane settings. It might be a passing comment over a cup of tea, a specific question they ask while walking down the street, or simply a pregnant silence that holds more meaning than 1,000 words. Often, they are entirely unaware of the monumental impact their insight has just had on you. But you feel it in your bones. Once you have tasted that level of profound recognition, you will relentlessly seek it out again. This is where the fascination deepens into a permanent mental anchor. Even if circumstances part your ways and you never see them again, that singular moment of pure clarity lives on in your memory forever. They become the emotional benchmark against which all future interactions are measured, because they do not try to predict or manipulate. They simply know. And that silent knowing makes the experience feel surreal, dreamlike, and entirely unforgettable. We move now to the fifth reason, a presence that physically and emotionally transforms spaces. There are individuals who speak incessantly, yet say absolutely nothing of substance. This archetype often says very little, but their mere presence communicates everything. It is the deliberate way they enter a room. It is the steady, grounded way they occupy physical space. Without uttering a single command, they can shift the emotional temperature of an entire gathering. When they are present, the artificial barriers between people seem to melt. Conversations organically transition from shallow gossip to deeper philosophies. The invisible tension in the air softens, replaced by a quiet gravity. This is their unseen power, impossible to articulate but entirely impossible to ignore. It is not merely a passive state of calm. It is an active, intentional focus. When they direct their energy toward a person or a situation, that energy possesses a tangible, heavy weight. In a chaotic world that constantly feels like a storm, their presence is the anchor. They do not need to dominate the conversation to lead the room. Their emotional grounding naturally draws others to them, seeking refuge. This transformative aura makes people subconsciously associate them with absolute safety, profound depth, and crystal clarity. Once someone has basked in that calm, they quickly realize how agonizingly rare it is in the modern age. We are surrounded by individuals who interrupt, who overreact, who project their own insecurities, and who rush to judgment. To sit beside someone who simply lets you exist without condition is a revelation. It is this stark comparison that fuels the lingering obsession. Long after the interaction is over, when you return to the loud, abrasive reality of normal life, you will desperately miss that feeling of being anchored. You will remember the specific way they looked at you, the way they made the chaotic world slow down and breathe. You will remember how genuine everything felt in their presence, and you will long to return to that sanctuary. Their presence never shouts for validation. It never demands a spotlight. It simply exists, gently bending the reality around it. And once you have felt the profound relief of resting in that gravity, you will never forget the person who provided it. Finally, the sixth reason lies in their breathtaking balance of authentic vulnerability and unbreakable strength. Society often forces us to choose a pole. We are either heavily guarded fortresses, terrified of showing emotion, or we are chaotic open books, spilling our pain without boundaries. This rare personality walks the razor-thin middle path. They possess the courage to be entirely open about their deepest feelings, their historical wounds, and their complex internal struggles. But they do so without ever losing their composure or their dignity. They do not bleed on people who did not cut them. They possess a profound wisdom regarding when to share, exactly how much to reveal, and who is worthy of receiving their truth. Because of this careful discernment, when they finally open up to you, it feels unbelievably authentic. It feels like a badge of honor. You know you have earned your place in their inner sanctum. This beautiful authenticity naturally breeds immense trust, but it also sparks a deep, burning curiosity. How can a human heart be so profoundly soft yet incredibly strong? How can they feel the tragedies of the world so deeply, yet remain so firmly rooted in the ground? When they speak of their pain, it is never a plea for pity. They are not seeking a savior. Instead, they offer their scars as a bridge of understanding. They frame their suffering as the fertile soil from which their immense empathy grew. They weave wisdom into their heartbreak, transforming their darkest chapters into a guiding light for others. Yet it is vital to know that beneath this immense compassion lies a core of iron. They are not martyrs. They understand their inherent worth. They possess a quiet, lethal ability to recognize when someone is taking advantage of their grace. And when that line is crossed, there is no dramatic explosion, no screaming match. There is only the quiet, permanent shutting of a door. This legendary door slam is born not of malice, but of absolute self-respect. This breathtaking juxtaposition of nurturing softness and uncompromising boundaries is a shock to the system for many. It shatters expectations. It commands a profound, awe-inspiring respect that embeds itself deep within your psyche. It is this exquisite balance that makes their energy so utterly addictive. They create an environment where you feel completely safe to expose your own flaws, while simultaneously challenging you silently to rise higher and become a better version of yourself. They will support you through your darkest nights, but they will never enable your toxic habits. They feel with the intensity of a poet, but they do not allow their emotions to completely drown their logic. They will love you deeply, but never at the expense of their own soul. In a modern landscape plagued by superficial performances, fake personas, and transactional relationships, they arrive like a breath of crisp winter air. They show up real. They do not chase followers, they do not beg for applause, and they do not seek the spotlight. Yet, ironically, by rejecting the game, they become the most unforgettable players in the room. They leave an emotional fingerprint on your heart, a lingering glance, a shared silence, a moment of profound recognition that echoes through the corridors of your mind for years to come. The majesty of the human experience is built upon these profound, silent connections. When we reflect on our lives, we do not remember the loudest moments. We remember the moments when we felt truly alive and entirely seen. This rare archetype serves as a living testament to the power of the unseen. Just as the ancient architecture of a grand cathedral commands reverence through its towering silence, or the deep roots of a 1,000-year-old tree hold the earth together in a storm, this personality anchors the human soul. They remind us that true power is not exerted through dominance, but through the graceful holding of space. They are the quiet guardians of depth in an increasingly shallow world. Their magnetism is an organic byproduct of their unwavering commitment to truth. To be drawn to them is to be drawn back to your own humanity. It is a sign that your soul is hungry for something more substantial than what the modern world is serving. Let us summarize the anatomy of this beautiful obsession. It begins with that initial, quiet intensity, a gravitational pull that draws you in without a single word being spoken. Then comes the shock of emotional depth, the realization that they are connecting with you on a frequency most people cannot even hear. You become mesmerized by the layers of their complexity, the thrilling puzzle of their guarded heart. You are deeply moved by their almost psychic intuition, triggering a profound nostalgia for a spiritual home you never knew you lost. You witness how their mere presence can calm a storm and transform the energy of a room. And finally, you are left in awe of their ability to remain incredibly vulnerable while wielding boundaries forged of steel. This combination is a perfect storm of human connection. It creates an emotional resonance that defies logic, defies time, and defies distance. It is not something that can be artificially replicated or learned in a textbook. It is a genuine emission of the soul. If you have ever crossed paths with someone who carries this aura, you now possess the language to understand why they haunted your thoughts long after they walked away. You understand why a simple conversation with them felt heavier and more meaningful than years spent with others. You were not merely fascinated by their personality. You were deeply moved by their presence. You were touched by their grace. And if, as you listen to these words, you recognize these quiet, intense, empathetic traits within your own reflection, this is your solemn reminder that your sensitivity is not a burden. Your quietness is not a flaw. Your aura is a profoundly powerful force in this world. You do not need to alter your nature to fit into the loud, chaotic molds of society. Your presence alone is quietly reshaping the lives of those fortunate enough to cross your path. It is a divine paradox that those who seek attention the least are often the ones who are remembered the most. They walk through life planting seeds of deep understanding in the hearts of strangers, often never staying to see the harvest. But the harvest is there. It blooms in the sudden moments of clarity their words provoke. It blooms in the comfort their memory brings during a lonely night. The obsession they leave behind is simply the residue of profound love and pure human grace. In a universe that constantly tries to pull us apart, their existence is a gentle, gravitational pull bringing us back together, back to our core, back to truth. They do not force you to remember them. They simply make it impossible for your soul to forget. May you find the courage to honor the depth within yourself. May you seek out the quiet spaces in this noisy world and recognize the profound beauty in those who speak softly but love fiercely. Whether you have been touched by this presence or you carry this heavy, beautiful light within your own heart, know that the desire for deep connection is the most sacred part of our human journey. May grace guide your steps, may peace anchor your mind, and may your soul always recognize the true, quiet magic when it enters the room. Thank you for walking this deep, reflective path with us today. Until we meet again in the quiet corners of understanding, may you walk in profound peace and unending grace.